This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everyone. Pretty much everything we do is piloted by this one thing. And there are many different versions of this one thing. I'm referring to emotions. When emotions come up, that's invariably the moment where you make a decision, you react a certain way. We're going to talk about emotions, what they are, where they come from, how to keep them in check. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified family mediator, and much more. And I got to believe, as our professional of the year, when he works with clients, I'm going to say it's all about emotion. Really. I'm trying to think of if it could not be, but I'm thinking it probably is. Gary Santucci is here. Hey, Gary, how you doing?
Good, Steve. How are you today?
Very well, very well. This whole thing with emotions, would it be safe to say that it really kind of is everything in terms of us making decisions, acting a certain way? Does everything ride on emotions?
Mostly everything, especially in our personal relationships. It is all about emotions. Sometimes very strong emotions, sometimes very aggressive emotions, sometimes very positive emotions. But nevertheless, they play a big role in just about everything that we do in our interactions with those that are close to us, even interactions with people that are kind of like, associates and peripheral people in our lives. But mostly it's a very complex kind of thing. It really kind of dictates so much about how we deal with life. It's a tool for survival in a lot of ways. It's a tool for communication. It's also a tool that helps us make decisions. And when we add emotions into decision making, it can cloud it. It can sometimes help it, not that often, but it can certainly cloud the emotions in decisions.
I like how you called it a tool, because many times we equate it to something that's negative. My emotions got the best of me.
Yes.
And, yeah, certainly can see that. It's all happened to all of us.
Right.
Let's reframe it to the positive side for a moment. How can you
Okay.
use it to your advantage? I'm just bypassing everything here and go right to the right to the positive. How can we use it to our advantage?
I think that we can use it to our advantage depending on a number of things. One is our mood. Oftentimes our mood is a factor in our emotions. If we're in a great mood, our emotions are very positive, upbeat, lively. On the other hand, if we're not in a good mood, if say we're depressed or we're anxious, those two emotions are very, very strong and can control our energy, can control our thinking, our behavior, certainly our attitude, and certainly dictate what the outcome of any decisions that we make are going to be. Mm-hmm.
Where do emotions come from?
I think they come, well, it's mostly, it's an inner kind of thing. It's not so outward, although we express our emotions outward, but it comes from inside us, inside our mind. And that's really the source of it. There's many different kinds of responses. There's a physiological response. For example, when we get excited, our heart rate can go up. When we get angry, our heart rate can go up. Sometimes it's a behavioral expression. It's a body language kind of thing, facial expression. We can see a lot of things from people on their body language and their facial expressions. We can see anger, we can see laughter, we can see being in a good mood, we can see being in a bad mood based on how we present ourselves in so many ways. It's all of those kinds of things. It's part of how we deal with emotions and where they come from and what we do with them. We want to be able to regulate our emotions. There are many people that aren't very good at regulating their emotions.
Let's go there now. How do we do that?
That's easier said than done.
Mm.
Oftentimes, let's say we exhibit negative emotions. Oftentimes, when we exhibit negative emotions, such as anger, uh, it's not something that's well thought out. We let anger do our thinking. It's mostly impulsive in a lot of ways. We blow up very easily. Some people blow up very easily, driving a car, having a confrontation with somebody. Those emotions can be very explosive and are not regulated. When we can regulate our emotions, I think what happens is that we manage our reactions constructively. So we have a better chance of having an outcome that we want to have. So that's a practice. You have to really work at self-regulating your emotions. It doesn't just happen. So I think it's very important to be aware of that. And we can all self-regulate. It's just oftentimes it's a mindset. You have to be able to be aware of what's happening. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to be aware of who you're dealing with in order to have better self-regulation of your emotions. I think.
Are there steps we can take to regulate our emotions? Let's and we could even come up with a hypothetical situation in dealing with them. How do we regulate them? But what are the steps?
I think there are several steps. One of the steps is recognition of what the situation is around us. Uh, also, recognition of where we are, what our moods are, in order to be able to, I think, facilitate a proper emotion. And oftentimes we're oblivious to that because we tend to plunge into those emotions, especially if they're being driven by factors such as fear. Fear is a great emotion that we all have. Okay.
Can I just jump in right at that point? And
Sure.
would you say that in some way, fear is the baseline for, I don't want to say all, but most emotions? It's always going to somehow point to fear.
I think it's a very dominant emotion, like anger. Uh, Guilt is another dominant emotion. We all have guilt. We all have fear. We all have anger. And on the other side of it, there's emotions such as love, happiness. Those are the emotions that we would love to have. And, we do have, many people do have that love, and many people do have happiness. Not everybody is happy, but those people that are happy and know how to achieve that happiness, I think, have a more peaceful, calmer life, more fulfilled and content life. So the opposite of that is the worry, the fear, the anxiety, depression. All of those things are opposite of the peacefulness and the calm that you would like to have in life. And so you have to work at those kinds of things in order to make those more consistent in your life. It doesn't just happen. We're not waking up and all of a sudden everything is wonderful unless we give an effort to help it be wonderful.
I can tell you from experience and getting better plugged into me on a journey, like we're all on a journey. I found that when you can, an emotion presents itself, when you can press the pause button. I had a situation last week present, business
Okay.
connected, have, different things I do.
Mhm.
Working with somebody, partnered up, and not sure if that's going to work, but something presented, and right away I'm like, what? Like, what are you saying? This is not the way it was planned, et cetera, et cetera. I'm very chill, low key. Kind of piqued me up a little bit. Like, we need to make some changes here. That was going through my mind,
Mhm.
but that was the end of last week, and in my mind, hit the brake and processing it. And now that I have, even in my mind, and I'm going to put it out in an email, here's where we are, here's what we're going to do or what we need to do. I feel taking that time diffused everything, gave me clarity, gave me direction. I just know I needed that time to really process where we're at in this situation. And yeah, I feel it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine, but needed the time, with something that presented to process it, essentially, really what it comes down to.
I think the majority of people don't process initially.
Mm,
We're able to put a pause on it. And when you
yeah.
did, what you did is you created uh, an opportunity to present logic into your decision making. Key point, okay?
Mm, mm,
Logic weighs the pros and cons of any decision that we're making, okay? There's always pros and cons in a decision. Is this an advantage, is this a disadvantage, etc. Emotions color all of that. They add the color to it. It's like, when you're logical, it's kind of black and white, but when you add the emotions, it's in living color.
mm.
And that makes it very, very different once you add the emotions in there. So if you stayed away from the emotions and you're making your decision, chances are with logical interpretation of that, you have a much better chance of creating a better choice and a better decision for yourself. Not to say that emotions aren't an important part and that they don't, that they will help ultimately, but it has to be accompanied by logic in order to create what we call like an emotional intelligence. Okay.
Mm.
And that helps regulate the emotions. You can regulate emotions with reason. Logic is reason. So when you can do that, like you did, I think you're much more successful in making decisions that are helpful and benefit you.
It came clear for me, even though my intuition was telling me this is the solution. There was a little
Mhm.
bit of emotion involved, but I
Mhm.
hadn't fully processed it. And now, a few days later, I look at it and there's the answer right there. There it is.
Right.
It's almost as if the emotion faded away off of everything, like almost melted off of it. And then there it is standing strong. That's what you got to do. This is what's going to
Right.
work in this situation. You said something I've never heard it said before, in that emotional intelligence is emotion and logic together. Am I
Yes.
am I getting that right?
Yes. Yes.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah. And the combination of the two, I think, with what you were saying, when it was clear to you, you were able to achieve clear thinking. Clear thinking is the best thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. Without logic, we don't have clear thinking. We have angry thinking, fear thinking, guilt thinking. All those things are distorted in being able to have that clarity of thought that we want to have in making the best decisions. So emotional intelligence is a combination of the two, and logic being, I would think, the stronger part of the two. We would want logic to be the stronger part because that's the more
Hmm.
rational approach, reasonable approach. Um, Emotions oftentimes aren't necessarily rational or logical, you know.
Well, okay. That being said, I have been to different events, retreats, about self empowerment, self
Okay.
development, and it's been said, especially for men, that when a situation presents, remove the emotion. Remove the emotion. Now, before I want your feedback. Before we go there,
Okay.
I almost feel that men get a bad reputation for not using emotion. And yeah, I get it. We grow up that way. Big boys don't cry, man up and all of that.
Right.
So a lot of men will hide their emotion, but then,
Yes.
I'll go to a self-development seminar for men, and it will be remove the emotion. You're never going to win the situation unless you do. So kind of confusing there in terms of maybe the direction to take as a man, but this could apply to everybody. What are your thoughts overall there?
I think it's been changing. I would say it's been changing over the last 20, 30 years. Um, More men are becoming more comfortable with expressing their emotions. Sometimes More men express their emotions in an angry kind of way. But I think that, again, we show more fear. We show more, I like to think more of a loving emotion. I think we show anger, but we're showing it with a little more frequency, actually a lot more frequency than before. I think it's a stereotype that, men are supposed to be stoic and, not showing their emotions and being tough and strong and unbending and don't cry and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yep.
I kind of think that maybe that was how it was a long time ago, but in our lifetime, I think we're seeing more men showing more emotion, and I think that women have a lot to do with that, helping men show more emotion. I don't think that they're absent in all this. I think they help men show more emotion because they're engaging with men to be more communicative. And when you're more communicative, you have a better chance of expressing your emotions, which again is at the centerpiece of everything as well. There we go back to communication again. Okay. In a relationship, it's at the core of that relationship. So when we have effective communication, there's more of a likelihood of expressing how our feelings and our emotions. And when we do that, I think we have a better connection with people. Much better.
Would you say we're never going to get rid of emotions? They're going to be there no matter what. But
All the time.
The key to this is keeping them in check.
Absolutely. And again, if we can create that balance so that we have that logic and that emotions, because, with logic, you're basing your decisions on facts. Okay. With emotions, you're basing your decision, they're guided by feelings, facts, feelings. Okay. Very, very different. Logic helps you problem solve so that if you have a problem and you're logical about it, you have a much better chance of solving that problem, making good decisions to solve it. When it's emotional, we tend to want to act fast. We want to make that decision. It's almost impulsive. When we express anger, very impulsive. When we express guilt, it comes right out. Okay, that sort of thing. So I think that with the logic part, it's a slower, more methodical way of dealing with making decisions. Whereas that fast pace, we rush. When we rush, we don't tend to see everything that we need to see, making good decisions. And I think that also it has a lot to do with our stress level. If our stress level is very high, that's probably not the best time to make a decision at all. Our emotions are too strong and too dominant to help us make the best decision for ourselves. So we have to be very aware of those kinds of things. That's not timing, again, is another factor in helping us make decisions. You took your time. Okay, you took a couple of days, and it paid off in being able to make a logical, clear-minded decision. That was very, very helpful.
Well, I will say during the conversation where situation maybe presented itself, it got a little testy with both parties, but that's where I was like, time to tap the brakes here. Let's see.
Yep.
Let's take inventory of what we got going on here and what comes into play. This situation, there was a little, not fear, but it was uncertainty. Maybe that's the best. And a lot of times that can lead to fear too.
Absolutely.
We don't want to admit it, but that's the reality.
And you knew that it wasn't the right time to continue that discussion because it wasn't just going to end well. So you kind of called a timeout and gave that opportunity, gave that situation a chance to cool down. You were able to walk away from that and come back later on with clear thinking and a better option. So to me, that's a much better way of handling that.
It is. I feel comfortable.
Any important decision, you don't want to rush important decisions. You want to be able to take your time and just kind of take a look at what's really going on. This decision that you're making, important decision, going to affect you in a big way. You want it to affect you positively, not negatively.
Yeah. And the clarity came very clear in dealing with the situation and realizing two people are on different pages and might have detected it, but didn't want to confront it and not really didn't have enough facts. And then there was more facts presented. And it's like, okay, so yeah, is there a first or second step in that moment? Something presents, you either need to react or think you need to react. Is there something that we should say to ourselves in our minds, deep breathing, whatever it might be?
Well, deep breathing is always a good thing to help you calm down and relax. There's this thing about when you're dealing with another person or other people, there's this concept of being able to read the room, okay, to know really what's going on, to be able to assess the situation before you plunge into it. And if you can do that, if you're really good at reading the room, again, you're going to be able to handle that situation in a much better way than if you just dive in without knowing what's going on and maybe inserting foot in mouth and ending up with a very bad outcome. So,
yeah, yeah.
It's a lot of different components to all of this, and you have to be thinking on your feet, and you have to be aware and tuned into what you're feeling and what's going on around you, what's going on in your surroundings, what's going on in the environment.
Yeah.
All those things are factors.
Do you find that once you harness the power of thinking about it, putting in some good emotional intelligence, adding facts to it, processing it, that you kind of get used to doing that, whereby, let's say somebody, flies off the handle and gets angry all the time, after time of maybe acing this, that it becomes a part of you where you do tap the brakes and then kind of figure it all out and then react.
I think that's much better, and if you can do that, it's almost like consistency with that.
Yeah.
Again, that consistency word, okay? When you are consistent in how you deal with making decisions, of course, then you're going to take your time, you're going to have clear thinking, you're going to base all your decisions on the facts, you're going to solve the problem, and again, the chance of you making the best decision for yourself greatly increases with that approach. The other side, you're creating a situation where the disaster is very likely. Bad choices, bad decisions, there are consequences associated with that. And if it's an important decision, those consequences can be kind of severe.
That is a great point, to consider the consequences. I don't think we do that. I think we just react on emotion.
Jump in. It's, again, you're saying it. It's the emotions that take over and put us in a situation where we're making that decision. And, oh my God, I didn't realize. Oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about this, and now I have to face the consequences. Too late.
Yes, right. Exactly. Final question here.
Sure.
Anger management. Is that all in line with what we're talking about here?
It plays a role. It plays a role. It drives a lot of our decisions. It's very impulsive. It says things, it causes us to say things that we haven't really thought out. And once those words are out, now we have another situation to deal with. Sometimes anger is driven by fear, fear of a change, for example, change in the situation, change in environment, change in your relationship, is driven by fear. So anger shows up and it can be very, very strong and very aggressive and very destructive. Very destructive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
see a lot of that.
Bottom line in all of this is you need to regulate it. You need to see it in different camera angles. And that's essentially talking with somebody like yourself to really understand, well, why do I do this? Why do I fly off the handle? Why can't I get a handle on my emotions? Gary, what's the best way to find you?
You can reach me at 954-474-1119. And that's, you can reach me at 954-817-1401. That's my cell. You can text me at that number. My website is GarySantucci.com. and check it out. It's I happen to be biased about my website, but I think it's very informative. You can also email me at garysantucci74@gmail.com.
I 100% agree with you, and I'm not just saying this because we're here, but your website is very well laid out with a lot of information. And for me, what stands out is you've been doing this for decades. This is not the, and very uniquely, you offer therapy, but also mediation when that's needed. Maybe when emotions fire up a little too much, that's what you need eventually.
Absolutely.
You can go that way.
Yeah. As a third party, I'm going to be objective. I'm not part of your situation. So
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Let logic be your friend. Gary.
Logic be your friend. Make sure you self-regulate. Right, Steve?
You got it. I appreciate you, Gary. Thanks for being here today, and we'll catch up next time.
Pleasure.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.